Yeah, so as Ryan said, I am from South Texas. I come from a place where it's mostly Mexican, so I kind of wanted to say all of this in Spanish. Then I need a translator, and it'll be 15 minutes. So, and as Ryan said, I also came to Tabor. I came to Tabor in the fall of 2005 and graduated in 2009, but didn't finish to 2010. A bit of an overachiever. Came for 5 years. But today I want to talk a little bit about something that was shaped in me. I grew up playing basketball, and basketball being a deep passion and really what I was living for. If we lost, we were deadbeats. We sucked. We failed. So that was my mentality and what I grew up with. So success was about winning. But a lot of things and people also told me what success was. And so that's what I want to talk about today. I don't want to just talk about this long-term commitment. I'm signing on for 10 years as a missionary in Peru. And that sounds a bit crazy, but I want to journey through some things of how I got to that decision and what God did, and I hope it kind of speaks to you and where you're at, because I believe that what we'll talk about this morning really speaks to all of our lives, and I want us to see and be challenged to redefine success and what success is about. So in your own mind, process, what is success to you? You've grown up with parents, maybe who kind of pushed you. This is success. If you don't become this, you're a failure. Or maybe you just grew up with parents of go for it. We free you up. Maybe you grew up with a school who said you have to have all these classes in order to be this and be successful. You maybe grew up playing sports. Some of you play sports. Or in music or in academics, hopefully academics were all a part of that in here. But there are a lot of voices that speak into our lives of what success is. And a lot of things that success is some of these things on the screen. As we were growing up, a lot of these things we even see on TV. In order for you to be successful, you got to be like LeBron James. In order to be successful, you have to have so much money or be as smart and innovative as someone like Steve Jobs. But when we look at the end of someone's life like Steve Jobs, and he felt like he didn't really do much. I mean, I'm holding something that he pretty much helped create, and I love his products, but he felt like he didn't do anything with his life. He left this earth kind of feeling like a failure. So what is success to you? How do you define success? For me, it's been a journey of redefining what success is, as I mentioned. And one of the things that I want us to look at today is God-defined success. That even though the world pushes us to define success a certain way or with a certain criteria, God has success that is a lot of times the opposite. Or it's what a lot of us may hear of the upside down way of seeing it, the upside down kingdom of how Jesus defines success. One of my friends, and who will be my teammate when I go to Peru, her name's Stacy, a missionary, before she went out as a missionary about 9 years ago, a retired missionary came up to her and asked her, what is success? How do you define success? As she was getting ready to go, Stacy responded, and then he said, what I had learned from decades of just living a life with Jesus is that I had to redefine it. And redefine it to being this. To being obedient to what God is inviting you to. So it doesn't matter of the effect of whether, like for him, he was a missionary, and I don't remember exactly where, but it wasn't how many people came to a Sunday morning service or an outreach event that they gave thousands of invitations and only 10 people came. It wasn't about how many people responded that defined success. It was, God, you called me to be obedient to this. That is success. So he helped Stacy, and really it's been a journey for me too, as I've been preparing myself to go to this beautiful land called Peru. And today I want us to look at Jesus. And I want us to see a moment in time when Jesus had to choose what the upside down view of success looked like. One moment of obedience. Listen to these words from Luke 22. Then, accompanied by the disciples, Jesus left the upstairs room and went, as usual, to the Mount of Olives. There he told them, "Pray that you will not give in to temptation." He walked away about a stone's throw and knelt down and prayed. "Father, if you are willing, please take this cup of suffering away from me. Yet, I want your will to be done, not mine." Then an angel from heaven appeared and strengthened him. He prayed more fervently, and he was in such agony of spirit that his sweat fell to the ground like great drops of blood. At last he stood up again and returned to the disciples, only to find them asleep, exhausted from grief. "Why are you sleeping?" he asked them. "Get up and pray, so that you will not give in to temptation." This moment for me, this really doesn't really go with the success theme. But as we're getting closer to Easter, as I've been studying this passage, I've also been like, what temptation was Jesus talking about? Like, he's praying, he's asking the disciples, like, pray. I'm going to go over there, pray. Pray with me. Pray here, and I'm going to go over here. We're going to be praying at the same time. What is a temptation? And as I've been reading a few different commentaries and different studies and just asking, like, what temptation? I've heard this all my life, like this passage. And one thing that I've come to is we know that these dudes a few hours later betrayed Jesus, either by giving them up, by giving Jesus over for some coins, or just straight up saying, "I don't even know that dude, peace out. Like, I'm walking the other way." All of them betrayed Jesus by turning their backs on him. But one thing that I've been reflecting on is the temptation to feel like Jesus betrayed them. I don't know if you've ever thought of that moment when the disciples saw Jesus on the cross being crucified. Have you ever thought that those disciples stood there and said, "You lied to us. You betrayed us. You told us that you would save us, that you would bring a new kingdom, that you would free us from the Romans. You said, and now you're on that cross, you lied to us." Was that the temptation? I don't know. But as I've been reflecting on that, it's been drawing me to what Jesus is asking me to pray for. Now we see this moment in time when Jesus is praying, "I would rather not go through that crap of beat, of being slain, of being pierced on my side, of being on that cross. But most of all, I don't want to be separated from my Father." He was in such agony. He did not want to go through what he knew he had to go through. Yet, he wanted the will of the Father, not his own. So, Jesus knew the step of obedience. Jesus knew, I don't like that. I would rather not do that. But I know that brings you glory. Father, I want your will to be done, and I will follow. And then he returns to his friends, and they're like praying and fasting and just in deep passion worship. He returns, and these dudes are sleeping. His friends are sleeping. Have you ever felt that way? When you're like excited about doing something, and then you turn around and no one's with you? Or God invites you to do something, stand up for something, the rights for someone, or whatever it may be, and then you turn around and you're on your own. Or that's what it feels like. Then you know how Jesus felt in this moment. He felt alone in that group of friends. He knew what was about to happen. So for me, when I know what happened a few hours later, and Jesus was beaten, I don't know if you've seen The Passion of the Christ, and a lot of people are like, I can't see that. It's just too graphic. I'm like, dude, he went that. He did that for you. If it's too graphic, that was your sin. But for me, when I remember each year as we're leading up to Easter, especially this year, just been all the more, you went through that for me. You died on that cross. And when I think about success, I ask myself, was Jesus successful? To the world standards, he lost. To the world standards, he was not rich. He was, in fact, poor. He usually didn't have a home to stay in. A lot of people hated him, and he ended up being crucified. So to the world standards, Jesus was unsuccessful. But God defines success, looks at that, and sees that, and redefines it, and says, every single human being on this earth can be different because of that one step of obedience. That moment of success that was redefined for Jesus when he wanted the Father's will over his own. So with this, I want to share a story of a man. Some of you may have heard this story a bit already. But this is a man named Mario. He's from Peru. He grew up with a father who was promiscuous and had all kinds of women. Mario had 30 half-brothers and sisters. Mario started drinking at about the age of 12 and became an alcoholic pretty fast. And so Mario's dad wasn't really a part of his life. He grew up with a single mom, a mom who loved Jesus, a mom who would sing songs of praise and hymns while she was washing dishes. And he remembers moments when he would scream at her, like, stop singing. Like, that's annoying. Stop singing those songs. They're annoying to my ear. And Mario remembers moments when she would just keep singing and love him. Mario got in trouble a lot. He went to prison and just kept drinking most of his life. He ended up marrying a woman named Rosita. They had 7 kids. He actually remained faithful to Rosita, but was still an alcoholic, and to the point where alcohol was where all of his money went. And his kids remember going to the street asking for money or food because they didn't have at home because of his decisions. And then one day, Mario was ready. He was done. He was done with this life. And Mario heard the good news of Jesus and the hope and the new life that he could live. And so Mario chose Jesus, and in that moment said, no more. I am not dependent on alcohol. I am turning the other way. I am not going to abuse my wife and children. I'm turning the other way. And Mario has been a man who has been growing and is still growing. This picture is of his living room, and one corner of a room maybe from that piano right there up to like right here. And that's the space where 100 kids come every week for a kids club to come and have a snack. A lot of them don't have much to eat during the day, so this is like highlight for them. But it's also a time when they get to sing, and man, do they sing. And about 100 of them, just like you can just imagine, these are not kids who are like used to sitting. So they're running all over the place, fighting. It's not like a peaceful thing. So it's not an easy kind of thing that he does, that him and Rosita do. Actually, their whole family take part in this. But that's the difference that Jesus has made in Mario's life. Him and Rosita are passionate about seeing their community, Catacaos is the name of the community, turned around. There's murder on the streets. There's drug dealing, human trafficking, prostitution. There's all kinds of brokenness right outside their window and just down the street. But Mario knows of the difference that Jesus makes in a life, his and his family's. So I want to show you a video of Mario. And it's actually not a video of Mario. If you wouldn't hear his story, he would just kind of be a background kind of person in this video. But I want you to tune in and listen to the difference that Mario and his obedience and his willingness to share about Jesus, how that changes Pablo's life. So as we hear Pablo speaking, tune in to the difference that it makes because of what Mario has decided to do. So did you notice the difference in there, knowing of Pablo's story, and how he used his brokenness and then also his gift of photography to take pictures? And then that was a way in. Mario is passionate about meeting with people like Pablo, people that he sees himself in. He sees brokenness, he sees emptiness, and just a hard reality of life. Mario is like a mini Billy Graham. He loves to share about Jesus, and he loves to just visit. If you go around Peru with Mario, be ready to just go up to random people and share about Jesus. Like, almost to the point where you're like sweating. Like, oh my gosh, like right now, oh, we're going in. Oh, we're just walking into the house. Okay, we're here. Now we're talking to them. And that's just him. He just loves being in the community and sharing. And now he's a pastor. And so when I hear of Mario's story, I ask, is Mario successful? Mario has a very humble home, not much money, but I think he is one of the most successful men on this planet. Eternally successful. Maybe not on this earth, world successful, but he is definitely someone who I am excited to go be walking alongside in ministry. So as we've mentioned, I'm heading to Peru as a long-term missionary for 10 years to start. It may be for the rest of my life. But I do know that it's been the journey of life, of moments for me of redefining things like success, that it's not all about what I always heard and grew up with, but asking Jesus, how do you want to redefine things for me? I grew up, and some of you have heard this part too, but I grew up hearing about missionaries coming to South Texas over 80 years ago, and because of their obedience, I'm standing here today. And when I think about that, I'm like, there is no way in hell or heaven that I will say no to the call of God to go to Peru if that's the difference that it's going to make in someone's life. That if it's one person like my grandma, Guadalupe Gutierrez, that it makes a difference in her life, that she will then just spread it out to her family and her community, if it's just for one person like Guadalupe that I'm going to meet in Peru, then I'm all in. And I know God has stuff there. So I know from receiving missionaries that obedience changes lives and that brings God-defined success. And so I'm excited to be a part of the now going and being one of those missionaries that loves people and is able to walk life with people in a long-term basis. Joining God outside of my known or comfort zone, South Texas is comfort zone for me. But stepping out of comfort has allowed me to grow in ways that I never thought I would. So I want you to remember today that we are successful when we take the steps of obedience that God is inviting us to. And that is a lot of times counter what the world is telling us. And it may be even counter what you're saying or thinking. So I want to ask you, what is God inviting you to? What could it be? Because I believe He's inviting every single person in this room to something. If you don't know Jesus, He's inviting you to know Him. If you do claim yourself to be a follower of Jesus, He's still inviting you to something. You're never done with the invitation that Jesus has for you. There is always more. Learn to be God successful now. Don't wait till you graduate, because you don't know if you're going to get there. And I learned that while at Tabor when one of my friends passed away our senior year. Do not wait to be God successful. Now is the time for you to redefine success. And for me, I have a heart for Peru. But it is only because of the steps that God has brought me through. I did not grow up with a heart for Peru. I didn't even have it 2 years ago. I didn't even think about the country of Peru ever. But now that's where I'm going for the next decade of my life. But it was because of the steps that I took. And so I want to invite, there are some people in this room who have already gone on what we call a short-term mission trip. But I want to invite those of you in this room that you step out of your comfort zone. It may be going across your mod. That may be going beyond your comfort zone. It may be going to another place in the world. So I want to invite you that this summer, if you don't know what you're doing, come on mission with us. If you're open to letting God expand what you think success is and your worldview and even how you view yourself, come join us. I wouldn't be where I am today if it wouldn't have been for a lot of baby steps that I have taken in my life. And so I invite all of us, including myself, what is God inviting me to? What is that step, that daily step, and it may be new every day, of what He's inviting you to? And so if you are interested in what this summer could be for you, and you want to come join Stacy and I in Peru, there is information outside the CAF. And if you would commit to pray for me while I serve in Peru for the next 10 years, there are prayer cards out there as well. And you can keep my face wherever you want it. I know that me standing here today as the speaker of chapel, only God could have done. And so, I hope that today helped you rethink what success is, who Jesus is, and the life that He lived and the obedience that He stepped into changed your life and can change my life and can change every single person on this earth. So may we leave today even simply with the question of what is success? Because if it's the world's, you will always fail. If it's Jesus, you will always be loved.